There is a moment, quiet, soft, almost imperceptible, when the veil thins, when the noise of the world fades to a hum and something ancient stirs within you, a remembrance not of time, but of essence. It is in this stillness that the old ones whisper, not in words, but in symbols, geometries etched in stone and light, frequencies carved into temple walls that pulse with an intelligence older than memory. And it is here, within the sacred hush of that ancient silence, that we begin our descent into a truth so vast it defies the modern mind, and yet so intimate it lives inside your very breath. In the sands of Kemet, what we now call Egypt, there once flourished a civilization not only of remarkable architecture and astronomy, but of profound inner knowing. Theirs was not a culture obsessed with death, as so often misunderstood, but with transfiguration, with the art of remembering what it means to be a soul having a human experience. The pyramids, the temples, the gods with animal heads and luminous eyes, all of it was less about worship and more about reflection. These were not idols, they were mirrors. But among all the symbols, hieroglyphs, and relics left behind, there is one that rises above the rest, like the sun cresting over the horizon of the Nile. A symbol so deceptively simple, yet cosmically layered, that even today it hums with power in the subconscious of those who dare to look deeper. It is not just a sacred sigil, nor merely a cultural artifact. It is, in truth, a map, coded, encrypted, luminous, a map not of geography, but of psyche, of spirit, of soul. It is a symbol designed to awaken the dormant aspects of the human being, to guide the initiate through the underworld of illusion and into the resurrection of truth. This symbol, cloaked in myth and mystery, points not outward to the gods, but inward to the divine architecture of the self. It is the Ankh, the cross with the looped top, known to many as the Egyptian key of life. Yet to call it merely the key of life is like saying the ocean is just a collection of water. It is both a gateway and a mirror, an equation written in sacred proportion, a cipher for unlocking the chambers of your being. When the ancients traced this shape onto papyrus, onto sarcophagi, onto the very walls of the afterlife, they were not crafting art for aesthetics. They were encoding knowledge, initiatory knowledge, into form. The Ankh is not static. It is not merely to be seen. It is to be lived, embodied, breathed. Because within its curves and intersections lie a complete cosmology, the unification of masculine and feminine, the descent of spirit into matter, and the eternal return of the soul through cycles of death and rebirth. To truly grasp the meaning of this ancient glyph is to open a doorway into a new reality, one where consciousness is not a byproduct of biology, but the very fabric of existence itself. Where the body is not a cage, but a chalice. Where death is not an end, but an alchemical transition. In this unfolding journey, we are not merely decoding history, we are remembering what was once ours. For what Egypt preserved was not just a legacy of a people, but a legacy of the human soul. And perhaps the greatest mystery is not that they knew so much, but that we have forgotten so deeply. As we begin this sacred excavation, let this not be a passive listening, but an initiation. Allow the words to vibrate through your cells, like the chants that once echoed through temple halls. Let your mind be softened like the Nile's clay, ready to be inscribed with a new yet ancient remembrance. If this transmission stirs something within you, if it echoes in the quiet chambers of your being like a distant drumbeat calling you home, I invite you now to like this video, to subscribe, and to comment with your reflections. This space is more than a channel, it is a sanctuary for the awakening soul. To understand the true nature of the Ankh as more than a cultural symbol, more than a hieroglyph, more than an object held in the hands of gods, we must enter the stream of consciousness from which it emerged. Not with the analytical mind, but with the initiated gaze. for the ancients did not separate the spiritual from the scientific, the metaphysical from the mechanical. Their entire worldview was one seamless tapestry, woven from the threads of cosmic law and lived experience. And in this sacred weave, the Ankh was a constant, an emblem not only of life, but of the structure of life itself. It begins with the loop, an oval, womb-like in shape, cradling within it the principle of infinite return. This is not merely a symbol of birth, but of eternity. It is the zero-point field, the unified source from which all form emerges. It represents the feminine principle, not in the limited sense of gender, but as the unmanifest potential, the field of becoming. This is the cosmic void, not emptiness, but fullness before form. In quantum terms, it is the infinite potentiality that exists before observation collapses the wave into particle. In mystical terms, it is the womb of Sophia, the Great Mother, the matrix from which all soul journeys begin. Descending from this loop is the vertical line, the spine of the symbol, and metaphorically, the spine of the human being. This line represents the descent of spirit into matter. It is the masculine current of focused intent, the lightning flash of divine will as it enters the realm of the physical. If the loop is the womb, the vertical line is the sacred seed. Together, they form a union, the hierogamy that generates existence. This is the ancient formula: spirit plus matter equals life. But life, as the Egyptians knew, is not merely survival or biology. Life is conscious animation. The Ankh, therefore, is not just the key of life, it is the key of awakened life. The crossbar that completes the Ankh represents the horizontal plane of duality. It is the meeting place of opposites, the world of polarity, contrast, and perception. It marks the moment when the soul, descending from the infinite, enters the play of light and shadow, joy and pain, masculine and feminine, above and below. It is here that the human journey unfolds, not as a random occurrence, but as a sacred crossing point between heaven and earth. The intersection of vertical and horizontal lines is the heart, the seat of the soul, the still point within the turning world. But the Ankh is more than just anatomy. It is more than a diagram of spirit descending into flesh. It is a map for return. Because embedded within its form is not only the architecture of incarnation, but the path of ascension. The loop is the origin, yes, but it is also the destination. The initiate, having journeyed through the vertical pillar of trials, the horizontal plane of experience, returns upward, back into the loop, but now consciously, transformed, awakened. This is not a return to sameness, but to wholeness. The ancient Egyptians believed that the human being was composed of multiple energetic bodies. The Ka, the Ba, the Ankh aspects of the soul that functioned at different vibrational levels. The physical body was but the outermost shell. The true self, the luminous being, was multidimensional, layered, eternal. The Ankh, in this light, becomes the Rosetta Stone of the self. Each curve and axis corresponds to a part of your divine anatomy: the loop, the bar, or soul essence; the vertical spine, the Ka, or life force; the crossbar, the alignment of forces in duality; and at the crossing point, the Ankh, the transfigured being, the soul made radiant, reborn through inner alchemy. We must also remember that the Ankh was not only worn, it was used. It was held at the mouths of the deceased in funerary art, signifying the breath of life being restored. It was touched to the third eye in temple rituals, awakening the higher senses. It was carved into doorways, not to ward off evil, but to attune space to life, because the symbol carries frequency. Geometry, when imbued with intention, becomes vibration, and vibration, as we now know through quantum science and cymatics, shapes reality. What the ancients intuited, modern science is just beginning to articulate: that life is not linear nor static, but a dynamic interplay of fields. That symbols are not simply representations, they are technologies. The Ankh is a spiritual technology, designed to realign the human being with its original blueprint: wholeness, unity, coherence. And so, to meditate on the Ankh is not merely to ponder a symbol, it is to enter into resonance with a higher order of being. It is to align your energy field with a forgotten truth, that you are not a fragment, not a victim of time or chance, but a luminous pattern unfolding within the greater symphony of the cosmos. The Ankh calls us to remember not as nostalgia, but as gnosis. It is the bridge between the temples of Karnak and the cathedral of your own consciousness. It is the silent hum beneath your heartbeat, the ancient yes pulsing through your veins, whispering, "You are more than this moment. You are the cross and the loop, the line and the breath. You are the mystery embodied." Let us now descend, deeper still, into the mythic waters where symbols cease to be abstract and begin to whisper truths from behind the veil. For the Ankh was not born from idle artistry, nor mere royal flair. It emerged from myth, from cosmology, from the dreams of the Netas, the divine intelligences that encoded truth through story. In ancient Egypt, everything spoke. The Nile was not just a river, it was the mirror of the Milky Way. The temples were not just buildings, they were star maps in stone. And the Ankh was a cipher, a key held in the hands of gods and goddesses who knew that the soul's journey was not linear, but cyclical, spiraling like the sacred serpent up the staff of becoming. Picture Isis, great mother of magic, cradling the Ankh in her palm as she breathes life into Osiris, her beloved. This moment, immortalized on temple walls and papyrus scrolls, is not just mythology, it is metaphysics encoded as narrative. Osiris, torn apart and scattered across the land, represents the dismembered self, the fragmentation we all endure as souls plunged into incarnation. And Isis, the restorer, is the intuitive intelligence, the sacred feminine force that reassembles what was lost. She gathers the pieces, speaks the words of power, holds the Ankh to his lips, and breath returns. This is the journey of the soul: descent, fragmentation, remembrance, reintegration. And the Ankh is the talisman of that return. The breath it carries is not merely oxygen, but spiritus, the divine wind, the pneuma, the breath that animates worlds. In this mythology, Osiris is not only resurrected, he is ascended, crowned as Lord of the Duat, the underworld of transformation. And we, too, like Osiris, are meant to die to the false self and rise as the awakened being, carrying the Ankh as both symbol and staff. Consider also the role of the Ankh in the hands of Ra, the solar deity who journeys across the sky by day and through the underworld by night. The Ankh was often depicted near his outstretched fingers, a sign of continual renewal. Here, again, we find that the Ankh is not static, it is cyclical, rhythmic, alive. Ra's journey is not just celestial, but psychological. The sun's setting is not an end, it is initiation. And the Ankh ensures rebirth on the other side of darkness. These stories are not merely about gods. They are metaphors for the cycles within us, the descent into shadow, the trial of ego, death, and the re-emergence of the soul in its radiant, golden form. The Ankh, then, is a guidepost through the inner terrain. It says, "This too shall die, and this too shall rise." It says, "Do not fear the night, for within it lives the seed of dawn." But perhaps the most haunting and luminous symbolism of the Ankh lies within the ancient rituals of temple initiation. The mystery schools of Kemet were not schools as we think of them. They were thresholds, places where the soul was tested, where illusion was stripped away, and where the initiate emerged, not with information, but with transfiguration. Within those sandstone chambers, cloaked in silence and star-mapped ceilings, The Ankh was more than a symbol, it was an energetic conduit. It was used in rites that activated the spine, stimulated the pineal gland, harmonized the heart field, because the body, the true temple, could become the dwelling place of the divine, if prepared properly. The Ankh was often placed upon the third eye, the point of higher vision, as if unlocking an inner doorway. In this, the Ankh reveals its second nature. It is also a key to remembrance, a key to inner sight. In some depictions, it even bears resemblance to a mirror. What then does it reflect? It reflects the truth that what you seek is not outside you, but encoded within. It reflects the eternal nature of your consciousness, veiled only by forgetfulness. It reflects the path of descent, and ascent the soul's sacred pilgrimage through matter back into light. And it reflects the paradox that you are both the traveler and the destination, both the initiate and the divine you seek to reunite with. There are whispers, too, in the old oral traditions, that the Ankh was once a vibratory tool, a device that emitted subtle frequencies to align the energetic centers of the body. Whether literal or symbolic, this reminds us of a truth modern science is only now validating. Form is frequency solidified. Sacred geometry is not decoration, it is blueprint. And the Ankh, as geometry, carries within it the codes of awakening. Even its proportions matter. Some scholars suggest its dimensions follow the golden ratio, the harmonic of nature found in seashells, galaxies, and the proportions of the human body. If so, then the Ankh is not simply about life, it is constructed from life's most sacred proportions. It is not just a symbol of balance, it embodies balance. Not just a key to the soul, but a reminder that you are already whole. And perhaps that is the greatest mystery the Ankh conveys. It does not promise life after death in the way we often conceive it. It promises life before death, full, radiant, and awake. It points not just to the heavens, but to the realization that heaven is a frequency, and the body, aligned and attuned, can become its temple. These are not just stories, they are activation codes, legends, seeded in time, waiting for a moment when consciousness is ready to remember. You are not separate from these myths, you are part of them. They live in your blood, your dreams. You're aching to return to something vast and forgotten. So the next time you see the Ankh carved in stone, inked on skin, hanging from a chain, look again. It is not just a cross with a loop. It is the whole map, the soul's compass, the gatekeeper of a mystery that begins and ends in the mirror of your own becoming. So how do we bring the Ankh down from the temple walls and into the pulse of our modern lives? How do we take this symbol so ancient, so sacred, and let it rewire our inner compass here, in a world of concrete towers and digital distraction? The answer begins not with doing, but with remembering. To carry the Ankh is not to carry a charm for good fortune. It is to align oneself with the architecture of life itself. It is to live in conscious resonance with the breath of the cosmos, to awaken the awareness that life is not merely sustained through biological function, but through energetic coherence, through soulful intention. The Ankh teaches us to revere life, not just as existence, but as presence. In the hustle of daily obligations, we forget that we are made of stardust, animated by awareness. We drift. We sleep with our eyes open. But the Ankh, like a bell rung in the chambers of the heart, calls us back to the sacred now. It asks, are you truly alive or merely surviving? This is not about abandoning the world, but about inhabiting it differently. In ancient Egypt, the initiate did not escape the body, they entered it more fully, activating each layer of subtle energy until the vessel became radiant. In this way, the Ankh becomes a symbol for embodiment, rooted, centered, alive in every breath. One can begin simply by breathing with intention, noticing the inhale, the pause, the exhale, realizing that this rhythm is a microcosmic version of Ra's daily journey across the sky. You breathe, you rise, you descend, you renew. The Ankh is already moving through you. In practical terms, the Ankh invites us to see our daily life as a temple. Each action becomes an offering. Each word, a spell. The foods we consume, the relationships we tend, the thoughts we allow to shape our perception, these are not mundane details, but energetic patterns that either align us with the flow of life or pull us into entropy. When one chooses to live Ankh-aligned, they begin to ask, does this nourish life or deplete it? Does this action support my soul's expansion or feed the illusions of disconnection? Even posture becomes a form of worship. The spine, often depicted as the jade pillar, the backbone of Osiris, is seen as the sacred conduit of life force. When you sit upright, breathe deeply, and align yourself vertically between heaven and earth, you become the living Ankh. Head as the loop, arms as the crossbar, body as the pillar. This is not poetic metaphor alone, it is energetic practice. You are the bridge between the invisible and the visible. You are the meeting point of the eternal and the temporary. When you live with this awareness, every moment becomes a prayer in motion. The Ankh also calls for a relational transformation. In ancient depictions, it is often handed from one being to another, from god to pharaoh, from goddess to child as a gift of life. This is no idle gesture. It encodes the teaching that life is meant to be shared, transmitted, sustained through sacred reciprocity. When we offer presence, compassion, or deep listening, we are in effect offering the Ankh, offering life force to another soul, saying, I see your essence, I honor your becoming. This insight brings us to the heart of one of Egypt's most profound spiritual technologies, Ma'at, the principle of truth, balance, and cosmic order. Ma'at is not merely moral law, it is the frequency of harmony. To live in accordance with Ma'at is to let the Ankh guide your actions, not from fear of judgment, but from reverence for balance. When we lie, we sever ourselves from the thread of life. When we exploit, we constrict the flow. But when we walk in truth, give generously, and choose integrity even in private, we nourish the river of becoming. We keep the soul aligned with the great pulse of the cosmos. Even in your challenges, the Ankh has something to teach. In times of grief, stagnation, or doubt, it asks you to pause, not to escape the discomfort, but to inquire, where is the energy blocked? Where has the flow of life been constricted? And how might you open the channel again, not through force, but through awareness? Sometimes this means journaling the emotions that have clogged your inner waters. Sometimes it means speaking the truth you've been afraid to utter. Sometimes it means simply sitting in silence, letting your breath become the wind that clears the dust from your soul's mirror. You do not need to become a scholar of hieroglyphs to walk this path. The Ankh is not bound to language. It speaks in sensation, synchronicity, and deep inner knowing. Begin by observing. Notice where life flows effortlessly and where it does not. Pay attention to symbols that repeat in your life, to dreams that echo ancient truths. Begin to track not just your thoughts, but your frequency. Ask yourself, is this situation, this choice, this thought, aligned with the frequency of life itself? And if the answer is no, pause, realign, call the breath back. Imagine the Ankh, glowing gold at your heart, rebalancing your field. This is not fantasy, it is ancient technology. In the end, the Ankh is not something to possess, it is a way of being, a frequency you emit when you live fully, speak truly, and love deeply. When you stop outsourcing your power to systems, structures, and symbols, and instead become the symbol, when you allow your life to become the message. So the question is no longer, what does the Ankh mean? The question becomes, how shall I live, knowing that I carry the map of the soul within me? There comes a moment in every soul's journey when ancient truths are no longer myths etched in temple walls or whispered in forgotten scrolls, but living fires. rekindled in the inner sanctum of one's own being. If you've walked with me this far, then you've already felt it, not just the weight of knowledge, but the pulse of remembrance. The Ankh is no longer a relic of a vanished world. It is a mirror, a key, a compass pointing home. We live in a time where the old maps are burning, institutions crumble, truth is buried beneath noise, and yet beneath it all a more ancient knowing stirs. The kind that does not scream for your attention, but waits with quiet majesty. The Ankh is that stillness, that hum beneath the chaos. It is the soul reminding you that you are not lost, you are becoming. In the symphony of existence, every soul plays a note. Most forget their melody, drown it in the static of the world. But when you begin to live from soul awareness, when you activate the Ankh within you, remember that your life is not a random chain of events, but a sacred composition. Every heartbreak, a crescendo. Every awakening, a returning to rhythm. You begin to walk with a certain grace, not because life has become easier, but because you have become anchored. The Ankh teaches that life is not something to chase, it is something to embody. It is a song to be sung, a current to be surrendered to, a gift to be cherished with every cell of your being. You are the loop and the pillar. You are the breath and the body. You are the mystery seeking to remember itself through the ritual of living. So what now? Now you choose. Not once, but in every moment. In how you greet the morning, in how you treat a stranger, in the thoughts you allow to root in your garden, in how you love, in how you listen. These are the subtle altars upon which the Ankh is truly worshipped. Not in gold, but in attention. Not in temples, but in truth. If your soul feels stirred, it's not by accident. The ancient Egyptians believed nothing was random, only forgotten. You have not stumbled upon this message by chance. You have followed a trail of breadcrumbs, scattered across lifetimes, arriving now at the doorway of deeper remembrance. The doorway doesn't ask for belief, it asks for presence. So inhale deeply. Feel your spine align like the jade pillar. Feel your heart soften into the luminous loop. Feel your arms energetically outstretched as the bridge between inner and outer heaven and earth. This moment, this breath, this awareness is the Ankh. You are the living symbol. And if enough of us awaken to this truth, something miraculous happens, not just within but across the collective. The river of human consciousness begins to change course. We no longer rush toward oblivion. We move toward initiation, toward integration, toward the golden age that the ancients whispered of not as prophecy, but as a cycle encoded in the soul of time itself. So I leave you with this. Remember who you are. Remember what flows through you. Remember that to live fully is the holiest act of all. And if this message stirred something ancient in you, if it touched the hidden temple behind your ribcage, I invite you to share your reflections in the comments. Let your voice be part of this great reawakening. Subscribe to the channel if you wish to continue journeying into the deeper mysteries with us. And if you know someone whose soul is ready to remember, share this video. Be the bearer of the Ankh in their life. Because this isn't just a symbol, it's a frequency. And that frequency is you.